Hi, everybody. Welcome again to Said Differently. I'm your host, Jennifer Sikora. The show's brought to you by Troupe, and we're all focused here on the art, the science, the particulars about bringing your story to the marketplace to try to engage potential customers, existing customers with you. Really, it's about messaging, positioning, all things story. So excited about today's topic. It's really getting into the human element and talking about why successful B2B messaging really should embrace empathy. So excited for our guest today, Leilani Garrett, who has really honed in on bringing empathy to the workplace. She's an author, keynote speaker, a workshop facilitator who focuses on radical empathy. We're going to cover that in just a moment. She draws her experience from both enterprise account executive and client services management at companies such as IBM, Gartner, LinkedIn, and Microsoft. So we're going to focus on how we're going to work that into B2B messaging and storytelling, Leilani. Did I do your intro a good service? Is there anything else you'd like to say to introduce yourself?
No, you did my intro a very good service. I mean, that's exactly what I've done. I've worked at those organizations in a sales capacity mostly. So yeah, good job.
What inspired you to move from that role to get into this,
Oh,
teaching
good
empathy?
question. Yeah. I'm a writer at heart, and I've always been a writer. And I had this opportunity years ago at IBM, and someone said, you don't turn down where I came from. Let's just be transparent about it. You don't turn down a job from IBM. That's what he said.
Right.
And so I took it, and I just sort of got wound up in the whole technology space
Yeah.
and tried to write during the process. But one thing I think about me is that I really do love the idea of humanity. I was
Yeah.
going to say I love people. I do love people, a lot of people, some people not so much, but really believe in the idea of humanity and that we are one.
Yeah.
And there's like one stuff that we're all made of. And when we realize that we should really see each other as ourselves, it makes a huge difference, not just in our personal lives, but in the things that we do to make money in our work life, in our professional life. So the whole human thing, once I decided to leave corporate America, I worked with a marketing expert on what I wanted to do. And she really dug deep into like who I was and what I was about. And we discovered that that was a thing that I felt very passionate about and
Oh,
feel
wow.
very passionate about.
Nice. And now you are running this as your own business through all your different channels of helping to teach and train organizations on how to embrace empathy. But you're calling it radical empathy. In fact, you have a playbook, I believe, that people can access from your website. Why
Yes.
radical empathy? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think what I mean by radical empathy is, empathy is viewed as kind of like caring about another person and what they're going through. And
Sure.
then you move on with your life.
How are you? How was your day? Yeah.
Exactly. And so radical empathy to me means embracing empathy at a deeper level. Let's look at this human being in front of us. Let's be curious about who they are, what they're experiencing, and then ask the question, is there something I can contribute to this human today? So it's radical because it's more.
Yeah. And I think as we take that idea and apply it to corporate messaging, as we take that messaging externally and try to woo customers and build pipeline, companies will spend weeks, if not months, working on their messaging document, their narrative, their pitch decks, and they put it out there in front of people. And it may be accurate, it may
Mhm.
be correct. It may use great grammar, but it may not resonate with a human who's listening to it, right? It could sound really interchangeable, it could fall flat. So, why do you think company messages that sound really smart like just don't connect? And
Mhm.
what do you need to change?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it reminds me of an experience I had in my first year at IBM.
Okay, can't wait to hear it. All right.
So I was given the opportunity to present, I don't remember the topic, of course, but it was some technology or customer service topic to a group of leaders. And they were vice presidents and, higher up than I was. I was a newbie. It was my first year. And
Intimidating,
so
but
I
yeah.
went to journalism school. And I rewrote and wrote and rewrote and wrote this presentation over and over for the week before I was presenting it.
Yeah.
And I also practiced in the mirror, I don't know how many times.
Wow. That's
And so
dedication.
it was dedication. But I learned that in journalism school to practice in front of the mirror. Now, I may have overdone it, but I knew every single word. I knew every tilt of the head I was going to do.
Mm.
I knew every inflection. And I went and I did this presentation. And for me, it was exactly what I had wanted. It was absolutely polished to perfection.
Mm.
And I was happy because I thought I was brilliant and it worked out.
Yeah.
And later
Yeah.
that day, one of the senior leaders who had been in the room saw me in the hallway, and she came up to me and she said, she thanked me for my work. She said, what a really polished presentation. And
Yeah.
then she said, maybe a little too polished.
Oh.
And
Hmm.
I remember thinking, is she crazy? I mean, for real, I worked so hard on this. What do you mean too polished? How could there be such a thing as too
Yeah.
polished? I really did not get it. And it
Yeah.
took me some time and some years to figure out that perfection is not the goal. The goal is to actually generate and create understanding. And because humans are imperfect, having a perfect pitch is not the way to go. Having a pitch that's truly authentic to you and your communication style is how you create understanding. And so, since that time that I had that realization, I gave up the idea of having a perfect presentation or pitch, whatever it was. And I really started to sort of rebel, if you will, against that
I like
and
that.
really lean into like how I spoke normally, the cadence, the tone, all
Yeah.
of that. And it's been more effective because it was the real me.
And I
So
think that's a
authenticity.
big thing that everyone is really valuing right now is authenticity, right? And
Yes, absolutely. And I think that, I came from a certain place where we speak and spoke a certain way. And I
Mhm.
really wanted to, again, journalism school, make it precise and clean it up and make it
Yep.
beautiful. And what I learned is that even though maybe the way I spoke would be a little bit, I don't want to say off-putting, but surprising to maybe a new client,
Mhm.
over time they came to a place where they appreciated that it was just me. It was
Yeah.
the real me speaking.
That's great. I really love that example. And you talk about doing that in a presentation for a format, but I even see it, first of all, I'm guilty of doing it myself, but I've certainly been on the
No.
receiving end of what I call the first call, the first sales pitch, right? Where
Mhm.
you're there, the person's selling to you, and they are trying, they have in their head that they need to get through their planned presentation, right? You have their slide deck is, let's pretend it's 12 slides long. They have a demo. They want to get through all of it, including the demo. So sometimes the conversation feels rushed. Sometimes they are zipping through it, talking 100 words a minute. That's probably too slow, actually, as I'm typing, but you get the idea. They're talking
Yes.
really fast. They're not coming up for air. There's no engagement. There's
Mm.
no dialogue because they're trying to get through everything. So when you think about like those first call presentations, like that example of like, is it better to not cover as much content
Mhm.
that and the trade-off being you want to actually develop a rapport and a relationship instead?
Yes. I mean, I'm guilty for sure of that. And I've certainly been on calls with partners, et cetera, who have been guilty of that. And you can just kind of see if you're in live with the person, sort of see their eyes glaze over. The first thing I would say is when you get another human being in front of you, start with curiosity.
Yeah.
Be curious about the human being and be curious about the human being before they're in front of you. So do a little research so you have some idea.
That is such an excellent point. Okay, go on.
Yes, yes. Know a little something, something about them. And I'll give you an example. My son's an English teacher. And so if I'm in front of, let's say, a vice president of manufacturing who I notice in his dossier has been an English teacher in a role previously, I might say something like, I see you were an English teacher in one of your roles. I have a son who's an English teacher. I'm curious, what about that role informed how you do the role you have today?
Yeah.
Has it informed you? That's something I'd be genuinely curious about. So not fake curiosity,
Yes.
real curiosity about the human. That's the
Yeah.
first thing I would say. The other thing I would say is please don't do a feature dump. Please don't do a feature dump. Know that, I mean, be curious about their problem, right?
Yeah.
What problem are you experiencing? It's called a discovery call
Mhm.
for a reason. So
Yeah.
discover some things. But most importantly for me, I'd say be curious about how the impact of that problem affects them. How do they feel about the problem? So
Right.
let's go deeper, not just the problem. And do we have time for a quick example?
Please. I love examples. Yeah.
Okay. I worked at a company, one of the ones you mentioned, we forecasted every Friday morning, and I had a
Okay.
selling partner.
Yeah.
And our forecast tool was this behemoth spreadsheet that had been developed like years before. And so it was patched together over the years. My products were in it. Joe Schmo's products were in it. The lady around the corner, everybody's products was in this. So
Uh-huh.
you had to find your product and plug it in, and
Oh,
it broke
okay.
all the time because it was 1,000 years old.
Yeah, really
So,
brittle and
oh
yeah.
my God. So on Thursday nights, it took another 2, 3 hours after work for me and my partner to actually finish a forecast every Thursday night.
Wow.
If you came to me and said, "Oh, I have this cool forecasting tool and it's going to be so slick and it does this, that, the other," I wouldn't care. If you said to me, "I can get you to dinner with your kid by 6 o'clock," that would matter to me.
Sure.
So, how does the person feel about the impact of the problem that they're having?
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
important in my view.
Yeah, definitely. I I certainly understand that like folks want to get their message out.
Yeah.
And there's this stress that if they don't get the opportunity to do that, that prospect or customer that they're talking to isn't going to want to take the next step. I don't know, in my opinion, it's okay to leave them wanting more if you're giving them enough and if there's enough of that, like you said, you're relating to their world, you're relating to their problem, you're making them feel seen.
Hmm.
Is that where we're going
Yes.
here? Yeah.
Yes. I say that because I mean, features are important if they relate to the problem that the person is having and they feel some kind of way about it. Even if you don't have a great presentation, if you're a human who is relating to this person and something about you sparks their interest, they will talk to you again.
Yeah.
You could flub the whole presentation, be a human being who's interested in another human being, you'll probably get another shot.
Yes. Yes. All right, I'm going to zip you a question that we didn't really plan for when we did our prep for this call, but it's related to what we're talking about. So, as a company is writing up its messaging, right? They're putting it on their website, they're putting it in digital content and collateral. That is different than having an actual conversation, right? Do you think written messaging needs to also be written with empathy and humanity? I
Mm,
mean, it's harder to achieve, right? Because the audience is much broader and more general
yes.
than a one-on-one conversation. What do you think
Mm.
about that?
I think it's a really outstanding question. I would say yes. And I would say it's probably, to your point, Jen, very difficult to do. I
Hmm.
write fiction, so I know kind of how to do it. I think if you're writing messaging that has to be really succinct, you have to be really crisp about how you put a word in there or a phrase in there that speaks to more people, but also relates to kind of their humanness.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's really hard. And I would like to, I'm going to think through that more because I would like to find some maybe taglines or messaging that actually
That
uh, is
demonstrate that.
successful at that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a challenge. Copywriting is difficult. And I think one of the easiest switches people can make is to have buyer-centric writing rather
Mm,
than you-centric writing, right? Like you talked about feature dump, like don't do a feature dump. Well, it's fine if you talk about what you do, but it should be in relationship to how they benefit and how their problems are solved. So,
I absolutely agree. Yes. And
yeah,
to do that in a tight, succinct, crisp way with just a short amount of messaging is a talent that has to be worked on.
it is. Absolutely. And
Yeah,
generative AI is only going to get you so far, right? It can give you a good start, but you still need a human to really kind of crisp that up, humanize it.
absolutely.
AI is not human, so it can't really have that empathy. It can
Well,
mimic empathy, right?
yes, I mean, and a really quick story about AI. I have a trainer and I'm tracking my macros.
Mm.
And I'm having a really hard time getting to the 25% fat, the 35%, carbs, protein, etc.
Okay.
And so he said to me, have Chat GPT or some other AI actually do a meal plan for you for the week.
Gosh. Oh
So,
gosh.
yes, I was like, okay, I did that. And one of the snacks was, you know where I'm going.
I
One
don't,
of the
but
snacks was cottage cheese and cucumbers.
oh, yum.
And I'm like, AI can't taste. Okay. So, yes. And I was like, I'm not eating that. I had to find a way to like, what can I replace that with? So it was helpful, but it didn't solve the whole problem. And that's the point. AI is very helpful in a lot of ways. It can't fix the whole problem every time.
No, it cannot. No. And you do run workshops. So, I definitely want to talk about that a bit, where you're coaching teams on how to infuse empathy into what they do in their workplace, in their settings, how they relate to each other internally, how they relate to their market externally. Like, let's get practical here. Like, what
Mhm.
would be something, an example of something that you might teach that can be habit building for
Oh,
people?
yeah. Yeah. First, I would say empathy historically in the workplace has been, I don't want to say shunned, but like a soft skill. Certainly 30 years ago, it was probably shunned. And now I think we're in a place where it's more considered a soft skill. I hope that's changing. It's really a smart skill. But
Yeah.
I'll give you some practical things that can happen. In a
Okay.
workshop, I ask folks to have start with three main considerations. One is go from me metrics to we metrics. It doesn't mean ignore what you need, your objectives, the things you have to accomplish, but think about the team's requirements or metrics as well, and then other folks. So expand your view of metrics from me to we. That's the first thing. The second thing I would ask is that they develop at least one story powered habit to lift someone else up that day, the next day, and the next day. So a
Okay.
story powered habit, and I'll tell you what that looks
Yeah,
like.
I'm curious. Yeah.
Yeah. And then lastly, measure your success, not just in like, oh, I hit my quota, which is awesome. Done it many times, lost also many times. It's great when you win. But not just hit your quota or got a promotion or got some accolades from some leader, but in shared stories. My success should include some sort of consideration of short stories that I've shared with other folks.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's an example, something I call story swap. And it's where a pair of individuals actually take 60 seconds and speak on the same topic to each other. And the prompts could be very different. Let's say the first prompt is, or one of the prompts is, when was the last time I was genuinely proud at work?
Okay.
So I tell that story, that 60-second story, and then the listener tells their 60-second story. At the end of that, the speaker probably feels more seen, and the listener probably learned something about this human that they didn't know that they could either celebrate or create some more understanding.
Mm-hmm.
It's the kind of 1 minute exercise that a team leader could deploy at the beginning of every meeting with two different individuals and
Yeah,
swap in and out, swap different prompts. And the prompts can go on forever. I mean,
sure.
what was the last customer problem that you solved?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell that story. So story swap is one.
Okay.
Very practical, what I call micro habits that folks can do and measure. Another one would be something I call verbatim victory. And I kind of stole this one. I named it, but I stole it. I stole it from a report that LinkedIn did in 2024, and it was their one of their workplace reports. They do
Okay.
learning reports and sales reports and workplace reports. And the workplace report said that when team members articulate something that another member actually said verbatim, that the psychological safety in that team goes up by 29%.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I
Yeah.
thought that was super interesting too. And I mean, it makes a lot of sense because if you tell me something and I paraphrase it, okay. But if I say exactly what you said, you know I heard you.
Yeah. Do you think
And,
that works in external, like sales conversations too, and customer
mm,
conversations? Yeah.
absolutely, because you're building trust.
That's
Now I know
really,
you heard me. I know you saw me, and I'm going to trust you just a little bit more. So we like expand. I mean, oxytocin pops in for sure, and we really expand the trust curve by doing that.
yeah, that's
So,
interesting. I mean, the title of this show is called Said Differently. So, often I think people do want to paraphrase what somebody just said, but
mm,
instead of doing a said differently, it's almost like, oh, I have a better way of saying that than you just did. But if you do it verbatim, then like you said, you're building that trust. I was heard, I was seen.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
And so if you're in a meeting or even with the customer, I would say what they said, and then I would say or ask, did I get that right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And if they say, yes, you did, or they can correct me, even in that instance, they're going to be more seen, more heard, more felt.
That's amazing. I really love that. Those two practical suggestions are terrific. And, at the end of the day, at least when it comes to sales, not necessarily internal employee relationships, although there are ways to measure the impact of that. But when it comes to going to market, it's all about, is what we're doing working? Is it moving people forward in a sales cycle? Is it helping to retain or grow a customer? And so those are the metrics, right? And certainly at Troupe, what we're looking to do is like measure, is what we're saying and doing and sharing working? Is it propelling people forward? So, I'm curious in your own career, in your own experience, you know, do you have a memory that sticks out when you've either used empathy with a client or didn't use empathy? I guess the example you gave kind of at the beginning with your highly practiced scripted presentation might be an example of one that maybe didn't work so well. But do you have an example of something that did work or maybe didn't work and what you learned from that?
Yeah. Oh, I'll give you a didn't work.
Okay.
It was 9/11. It was the morning of 9/11.
Oh, whoa.
Yes, and I happened to see the planes go into I walked to the lake. I live in Evanston. I came back and the TV was on and I saw it. And my team and I were going to a hospital in town to wrap up, to close a deal we had been working on for several months. It was a $3.5 million hardware deal, frankly.
Yeah, that's high stakes.
Yes. And so, I mean, none of us thought we shouldn't go. We're closing today. We knew this had happened, but it happened to all of us. That was kind of our thinking. So we went and we were sitting outside the CIO's office, and there were conversations going on around, and mind you, it's a hospital, so it's the IT group in the hospital.
Yeah.
And we're having these conversations about what just happened, et cetera, with the team. And I said, okay, that happened. I get it, but we got to close this deal. So let's switch our thinking. Let's sit it aside and let's focus on what's the latest we have to offer this gentleman that's going to get us to the end of the job.
Mm.
And we did that amongst ourselves. And we sat there and we sat there and we sat there and he didn't come out
Oh,
for a very long time. And
yeah.
his assistant finally came out and she said, we're not doing this. He's not doing this today.
Okay.
This is a hospital.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on. We're about to shut down and y'all got to get out.
Oh boy. Wow.
And I missed the clue completely because I was like, let's go. It's the end of the month. We've been doing this for 3 months and let's wrap it
Yeah.
up. And I'm really, in hindsight, I was glad that we didn't get in there and have a conversation with him. It was totally inappropriate on that day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, those lessons learned are so important, and we all learn from those types of things for sure, and
Yeah,
not everybody's good at compartmentalizing certain things either. So,
true.
some are,
And
but
yeah, and sometimes we shouldn't, right? I mean, you're
right.
right. Everybody's not, and I don't know that I am or am not, but I think on that day I felt like we all should, and it was really the wrong inclination.
Yeah, no, that's a great example of something that, didn't go so well that you learned from. I mean, hopefully you eventually still won the deal, but
Yes, yes, yes.
good. Well, not that day though. Yeah, that was a rough time for sure.
Mhm.
Leilani, I've really enjoyed this conversation. How can folks engage with you if they want to, workshop or have you in as a speaker or things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is leilanigarrett.com, leilani-garrett.com. So please go there. There's a lot of information about what I do. There's a video of me speaking, so you can check that out. The Radical Empathy Playbook is there for downloading for free with these exercises that you can use with your team. So that's one way. I'm also on Instagram at Lahnnee, Lahhnee.
Okay.
And so that's a fun place to see the kinds of things that I do and talk about empathy, as well as my fiction writing. And then I'm on LinkedIn, Leilani Garrett. So please reach out and let's talk about how we can help your organization or your team.
I love it. Yeah. Okay. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for being a guest.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Take care.
I
Bye.
will. You too. Bye bye.